Hello, I'm Isa. Welcome to today's video. I thought it would be fun to rank my books together with you. I've decided to rank them from bottom to top, meaning from my least favorite to my most favorite. Not in terms of writing. I think if I judge how the writing process was, then the ranking would be completely different. I can do a separate video for that and explain why. But just in terms of how good I actually think the book is in compared to the others. If my ADHD takes over, feel free to tell me. I sometimes don't notice when I start rambling. I will just judge the books which have been released already on Amazon, not the ones available on Patreon and Inkit, because not everyone will have read these already and not everyone will be able to follow. This means we're talking about 8 books from the Silver Lake Wolf series, the prequel included, and 1 book from my other series from Under the Werewolf Crown, formerly known as the Kingdom series. My least favorite is Chance at Redemption for the Twin Alphas. Now, from a more neutral perspective, I think there are a few issues, and one of the most prominent issues is probably the huge cast of characters. I tried to wrap up several loose threads from book 3, which is why this book follows so many characters, plus we have twin alphas. My twins don't share mates in my universe generally. Not even identical twins share mates, and they're identical twins, each with their own mate, and each mate with their own backstory. I have some other side characters I included to wrap up the story a little bit, most of them from book 3. I do think I did what I could with so many characters, but to have so many characters in one story and do them all justice is incredibly difficult. The other issue is that in this book we have a plot surrounding deities, and every time some sort of godlike being is in a book, in my opinion, it makes it more difficult to write and to make sense of the plot, because how do you beat or win against a god or godlike creature? Especially like here, where the characters in this book are not necessarily the most powerful in the whole universe I created. There are really powerful characters in the Silver Lake Wolves series, like Alden, Alpha Alden, and Luna Flora, and their firstborn son, Alpha Liam. These 3 are incredibly strong and powerful, but not these. Now, they're not weak, but they're normal Lycans. I think it could also be interesting that they're not the strongest and still do what they can do. However, I think 1 point, a lot of characters. 2nd point, it can't be read as a standalone book. Most of my other books can be read as a standalone book. This can't be, because it follows book 3, and in my opinion, it makes more sense to read it after book 3, or I think you might get lost in between. And the 3rd, the plot itself with the gods. And I did put a lot of research into this, so that's not the issue, but it's just, now talking about, I remember the writing process wasn't so fun either, but we said we wouldn't rank the writing process here. Following up is A Second Chance for the Beta. And it's kind of fun because this and the one I mentioned previously are more spin-off-ish books. They don't follow the Alcott siblings, but side characters. Characters for who I wanted to fill a bit of a gap. And I don't think this book is bad for what it is. But I also don't think it's necessarily really interesting, because we do follow an established couple, and their main conflict is not them and their relationship. Their trauma healing, which I personally love writing and reading, they are also connecting with the only family they have left, which is a teenager. And it's a lot about family, but they also bring in the whole vampire side plot. And I think if you want to read a shifter romance story, there's a lot of vampire stuff in it, which I later used for another book, and which, in my opinion, I did better with. But there's a lot of stuff happening here, and I'm not sure if it's 100% interesting to read. It also wasn't too easy to write. Maybe there is some sort of connection to when the writing process is difficult, you kind of maybe feel it also when reading. I don't know, I'm not sure. I don't hate it, and Patreons and InkKid subscribers actually liked it a lot, but I also see in the reception on Amazon and with the reviews that this is lower than other books. I kind of took the hint. I did like writing Ella and Dante, but I do think a book which is about the relationship of the main couple is probably a bit more interesting. Here, I'm so sorry I don't have the print version of this book yet. I forgot to order it. I usually order a bunch of author copies for each of my books just to have them for giveaways or, I don't know, for friends, etc. But here you would see an enigma for the Lycan Crown Prince. And I think here I'm going really against the grain because readers actually really like this. I actually think I should rank it even lower. The only reason I don't rank it lower than the other two books is because the characters itself, Alden and Flora, are much more intriguing than the characters I wrote in the other two books. Plot-wise, I don't like the plot. I'm sorry. I went insane writing this. I felt while writing it that I wrote myself into a corner a lot of times, not necessarily while writing this book, but because of the setup from the other books. As an author, and I'm not sure if this correlates with what you feel as a reader, writing overpowered characters is extremely difficult because you have to explain and make sense of why certain things still happen when they have these huge powers and gifts and relations, etc. It's all in all an overpowered, and we're talking really overpowered. No one is as strong as Flora. And after her, right after her, no one is as strong as Alden. They are really a power couple, and having a power couple as a side characters is different than writing them as a main character. Now, I do think an enigma has a strong first half, because in the first half of the book, I focus on them as teenagers and children, and also I don't spend a lot of time in the children's arc just to set up the plot, because I know no one wants to read a whole book about kids. Not the audience I'm writing for. But I spend a lot of time writing them in their in their late teens, meaning 17, 18, when a lot of things happen in their lives. And I think Alden's relationship to his father, or rather how he struggles with it, his depression coming from what happened between his parents, what happened to his mom, and also the desperation, the desperate need he feels to receive his father's love. And that's a strong point of the book. But the second half of the book, or the last third, is where it gets really, really complicated, mainly because of who these two people are. I think I couldn't do it better, which makes this so difficult. If I could have done it better, I would look at this book in a different way. But it's not comparable to the previous two books. I was really set in what I could have done with these two characters. I don't want to spoil anything, but in the last third of the books, in the last third of the book, a lot of things get explained and revealed. And yeah, I tried to make it interesting. I'm not sure if it worked. Also, this concerns the writing process. I need to do an extra video about this because this book had a lot of issues for me while writing it. There are specific reasons for that. One of it was it being a prequel. I will never write a prequel again. The only one I will write is the Jace and Janice sub or spin-off, and it would just be a novella, and I'll do it because patrons and Inkit subscribers really want to read it. And it's not really that much effort for me to write it because it's basically set up with the prequel. But I won't do prequels anymore. My brain is not braining when I write prequels. The next one will surprise a lot of you because I think it's actually one of my readers' favorites. It's a female alpha for the Lycan Prince. The main couple of this book, Celine and Marius, are probably one of the most popular couples I've written. Mari in particular is one of my most popular male characters. I think the only one who kind of beats him is Liam and maybe Alden, but he's always in the top 3 somewhere. And I actually personally like the plot between Celine and Marius. However, there's a whole second arc and plot in this following another character, Valerie. I also don't think that her plot is bad. I just wouldn't put both of it in one book anymore. Now, the reason why I did it back then is I was really insecure about how I should proceed with my writing and how I should keep readers interesting. And at this point of my journey, I still thought I need to do a lot to pull readers in. That's not true. It was just a feeling I had. I have some issues with self-doubt, and then imposter syndrome kicked in and all the like, and I thought I needed to do something really special for book 2, and following Marius and Celine alone would not be enough. Looking back now, it would have totally been enough, more than enough. Actually, I think the books that work the best for my readers, and also which I think are better, are the ones which focus solely on one couple and just don't make things too complicated. If I would redo this, I would totally separate the 2 plots and maybe give Valerie her own spin-off, because through her character arc, I've established the setting in Paris, the Lycan Council, etc. And Prince Eric is a very popular character. He's an important character, and I would separate these 2 books. Okay, next book in the ranking is A Mysterious Slave for the Lycan Prince, and I think here we see that a book which focuses on one main couple actually works better. I like this book. I don't want to praise my own work, that's not what this video is about, but in my whole universe and writing process, I think this is actually not bad. Finn is a very popular character, and he was fun to write, his mate was fun to write, and despite it still having some extras there and extra plot lines, because I felt I had to do it, just to give you a feel about how my brain worked, I felt like with every book I wrote, I needed to offer something super special and super new. I wouldn't do it again because I don't think it's necessary. And finally, the books that are a bit simpler worked best for my readers. And this is a tad simpler than the others that I mentioned, and it did work better. I think this is a book where I have progressed a little bit in my writing and learned a little bit more and understood myself and the writing process a little bit more. Still not fully there, but when are you ever? The next is An Omega for the Lycan Prince. Now, An Omega is not without mistakes, mainly because it's my first book. And It's a long book. It's the longest of it all. I don't know, we don't see it at the... We don't really notice it because in comparison to the others, it doesn't look longer, but that's just because of the layout. This is almost 200k words, and just to give you a feel, the other two long books are 50k words shorter. It's a little bloated. I dragged out certain plot points. I would never drag out the stalker subplot again. Not like this. I would still do it because it's an important learning lesson for Annie. And there are some readers who hated this plotline, but the reason I put it in there is also to show how real having a stalker actually is for a girl, and how difficult it is to handle it, because you can't go to the police. People won't take you seriously. And funnily, when I discussed this in my Facebook author, no, it was on my author profile when I discussed it there, suddenly a lot of readers came forward and said, hey, I had the same experience in college. That's why I put the plot there. It's just a tiny subplot. It's nothing that leads to anything major. Indirectly it does, but not at this point of the book. I would still do it, but not to that length. I would cut some lengths of the book. I would also cut out one or two spicy scenes because I just added them because I thought readers wanted to read them. And it's always better to add them because you just feel it at that moment, or rather you feel that's what the characters want at that moment. However, I think what I did well here is my main focus was Annie and Liam. In itself, the plot is not difficult. It's truly about these two people with a huge difference in rank and them being smitten with each other and trying to make it work and struggling with society, etc. Also, both of them proving themselves as who they are, but also as a couple. It's not just Annie, it's also Liam, who is a super strong character. But this is actually him coming to terms with who he is, what's expected of him, and finding his own path. I think this is what draws readers in, that it truly focuses on these two people. The next one is The Kingdom of Eternal Ice. It will get a new cover, by the way. Fantastic, beautiful cover. I had it commissioned. I'm currently in the process of updating it. I think The Kingdom of Eternal Ice it's also book one of a new series. It's a shifter romance series. And I incorporated a lot of things into this, which I learned from writing the other books. And I think this what's making it actually a pretty good read. It's incredibly difficult to write for reasons, but I really think in terms of plot holes, making sense of the plot, etc., I really did a lot better than with the previous books. I just, to be honest, I need to be honest to myself. I also planned the plot here. I had a whole outline, etc. And this is why I think as a reading experience, this is not going to be bad. A Silent Prodigy for the Lycan Princess is another book, I think, where I actually put into practice what I learned. There's a crime mystery plot going on there, but it's really connected to the main characters and it's basically the driving force. But the focus is on the main couple, despite there being a lot of side characters, which I also tried to cover a little bit and give them their happy ends. But here, the side characters I already set up in earlier books, which helped me a little. I didn't need to reintroduce them a lot. And I don't think they steal the spotlight from Aurelia. And they also don't steal the spotlight from Arden. I also think in themselves, as a couple, they are not overly complicated. Not like, for example, Eldon and Flora, who have a lot of mystery surrounding their existence. We have a Lycan princess and a Lycan. And I think that's what makes it work well. It's not too complicated. instead of making who they are complicated, I was able to focus on Arden's trauma and his issue with his family and how his confidence slowly grows. Also was able to focus on Aurelia and having a proof how strong and good at her work she truly is. And on the top for me is A Broody Maid for the Human. Well, this is an LGBTQ story. It's an MM romance book with one of the most popular side characters, and this was perceived very well. And I also think it's my favorite if I had to choose one. First of all, I think the main couple has amazing chemistry. The human guy is I don't know how it worked, but he's just hilarious, and his POVs did work really well. I think they work well together. Then the plot itself isn't too complicated either, and still I think it's interesting. There is a lot of tension there between the characters for reasons without there being the whole miscommunication, etc. trope. And I think they had really great chemistry. So that's the reason this book is my personal first place. If you watch this video, feel free to tell me which book you liked the most or how you would rank them. This is just my very critical opinion as the writer of these books. You know, the saying, sometimes you're your own biggest critic. And I do think it's important to reflect a little on what you have written, because that's the only way you can learn and grow. And I have learned a lot while writing the Silver Lake Wolves books in terms of how I work, what type of writing I enjoy, what my readers enjoy, and also it's a whole journey and learning process. I also understood things I wouldn't do again. Well, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to have fun reading, have fun writing, and drink enough water. Bye!